Welcome to the Ashes into Beauty podcast with your host, Stephanie Marie Laswell, divorce concierge at The Divorce Life. Hello, listeners. Thank you for tuning in. This is your host, Stephanie, and I am with my friend, Amy. Hi, Amy. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So let's just dive right in. So you have been through divorce before.
I have.
Kind of walk us through what that process was like. What were the ashes that came from the fallout of your marriage ending?
Well, first of all, I guess I'd like to say I think I'm unique, although aren't we all unique? My divorce was from a man who had been my best friend since age 12.
Oh, wow.
It happened after almost 20 years together. And when I found out, sorry, that's awful. Sorry. My divorce happened from a man that I had been in love with since age 12. We were best friends all through junior high and high school. And then we did what the natural next step was, which was get married, had a couple of kids. And then 9 years into our relationship, I uncovered that he was gay.
Mm.
So like I said, I like to think I'm unique because I didn't marry a man who left me for another woman. There wasn't like a cheating aspect. It was a completely and totally different situation than I thought existed. And I truly thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
Which I learned later was not true, but that was my perception at the time. So my ashes looked like a 20-something woman with 2 kids who had barely even kissed another boy, much less been intimate with another man in my life. And this man who left me, I didn't know if I was doing anything right.
Mm.
It had just been us two for so long, I didn't have my own identity.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been wrapped up with him since age 12. So I was left a very broken person who could not share his story because it wasn't mine to share.
Yeah.
I was left a woman whose own mother asked me, Amy Michelle, were you cheating on him? I was left very lost and very broken, and wondering what life was really supposed to all be about.
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally see that. How did you find the courage and the strength to pull yourself together and find your identity? Like, who is Amy separate from this person?
Boy, that was really hard because, like I said, it had always just been us two. And then when our relationship ended, I was, of course, very focused on being a mother to our 2 young kids. But also I was left very much searching for who I was, what my life meant. During our relationship, I had put my own education on hold and kind of held myself back. My very initial intention was to be a doctor, and I went to nursing school instead so that my partner could go to college, which never happened. But so I was a nurse, and I was a mom, and I was his wife. And I never really knew who I was or who I was supposed to be. So I went searching. I searched for a new job. I thought about, moving to a new house. I thought about all kinds of things. I dated a lot, all the wrong kind of guys. Ended up with a man who was very wildly, vastly different than him. And then I actually became sick, and I lost my job due to my own health. So I got diagnosed with a series of autoimmune diseases. While I was with who I call the in-between guy, the one boyfriend between my two husbands. And during that time, like I said, I got diagnosed with a series of autoimmune disorders. I broke my back. I got pregnant with a Mirena in place, miscarried that child alone without that man there at the hospital. And then got diagnosed with cervical cancer, all within about a year's period of time.
Yeah.
right after my divorce, I'd actually gone and gotten gastric bypass surgery as well. So I'd lost a ton of weight. And that was a very, very trying period of time as well. So that whole kind of year was wrapped up in major health problems, depression, anxiety started to build and build. And so not only had I then lost my husband and my best friend and partner and all of that, I had lost my health. And I had lost the only job that ever gave me any kind of validation. Because when I walked through the doors of the OR, Amy was a badass. I knew what the hell was going on. And people came to me to ask questions. It's the only place I probably felt valued for many years. And when I lost that, and my health declined to the point I was in a wheelchair, and that guy just couldn't hack it anymore because I wasn't bringing in my nurse salary, and we split up, I found myself living back at home with my parents in a wheelchair.
That's hard.
It was really tough.
Yeah.
So, what it took to come from point A to Z, I say a lot of times, sometimes I feel like I don't know how to help others through that because it was such a meandering road. But when I finally found myself distanced from everyone in my life is when I really kind of hit rock bottom and started looking for who I was. And I thought I was going to find it in the bottom of a bottle. That didn't work out so well. And I didn't know where to find it. But slowly, step by step, thanks to really the echoing voice of my grandmother in my head, just keep going. Just keep going. You got to just keep going. One foot in front of the other. And some days that looked like getting up and making a piece of toast to feed myself because I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
Some days it looked like, just checking the mail, but putting one foot in front of the other is what really ultimately got me through.
Yeah. That's a lot of mourning several areas of your life all at once. Besides your parents, did you feel like you had anybody else like cheering you on? Obviously, your grandmother was a great spirit that was cheering you on, but did you feel like nobody understood or there was no one to relate to or comfort you or any of that?
Oh, for sure. Like no one. And the other side of that is that really there are very few divorces in my family. My parents have been married for 40 years and the only couple, the only people they've ever been with. So my grandmother is a divorcee. And so she's not remarried to this day. She's 80 years old and she's very much independent woman. And so, yeah, kind of the voice, her voice, of course. And I had an aunt who'd experienced a very sudden death of my uncle. And she and I actually were able to share quite a bit through that because it felt like my ex had died, except it was almost worse because he was still there.
Yes.
And I still had to be co-parents with him. And I was so angry. God, I was so angry. It got to the point at one time, and I can say all this, thank God, because I'm triumphantly standing on the other side of all of this mess. But there was one point, I found out that he was gay only because I asked him a question. I said, have you ever thought about maybe being with another man instead of a woman? We were in the car, and he just stayed silent for miles. And then he pulled off the side of the road and he started crying. And so then I knew, because this person had been my best friend since age 12. And so I wasn't even angry at that moment. I slipped over into the driver's side seat, sat on his lap and held his big old crying head. And we mourned together because we knew it was the beginning of the end. But again, like I said, that wasn't my story to tell. So yes, I felt very alone. I couldn't even tell people why we were separating, why we were getting a divorce. People thought maybe it's because I had been losing some weight and I was feeling myself, or, we just kind of grew apart. But really, it was so much deeper than that. And I didn't have anyone to tell, and nobody understood. And it got to the point where I had distanced myself from my entire family so that no one could even understand, because I wanted to be away and alone and hide from something I didn't know how to get over.
Right.
He stood in front of me and I screamed, "How dare you lie to me for so long? How dare you rape me out of my 2 children?" I mean, I said those words. They were so wrong looking back. And I think one of the things that's hardest for people in divorce is accepting our responsibility in that. And I felt truly at the beginning that I had a zero responsibility in this. How could I possibly? You wouldn't believe, Stephanie, you wouldn't believe the number of people who thought it was okay to say, turned him gay, did you?
Oh.
Like, holy shit, really?
Yeah.
Wow, thanks. I'm already feeling completely inferior as a woman whose husband, quote unquote, turned gay on her. And that was kind of the running joke. But, and even so many people that found that we told eventually that learned would say, "Oh my God, how hard for him. How hard for him to have had to live with that secret for so long." And here I am standing, feeling so naked, saying, "Yeah, how dare him hide that? You're right. How dare him hide that from me?" Because he knew the whole time. He knew. And he was so morally, ethically, religiously conflicted with himself due to lack of awareness in the 90s,
Right.
due to lack of support and resources for our LGBTQ community in the 90s. He was also lost. And so it was something that we were trying to navigate together alone.
Right.
At first, we were really friendly and talking about who we were dating, and then we were angry, and then we were friendly again, and then we were upset again. And nobody understood either side's role to play. But I had a role to play. I did. He was my very best friend. I knew him better than anyone. Still do to this day, he would say. But trying to come to terms with the fact that I had inklings, there were signs. We had, communication issues. There were issues in the bedroom, obviously. I'm very lucky and blessed to have the 2 boys I have. But I had a role to play. And I could have navigated things better throughout our marriage. I could have navigated things better throughout our divorce. But ultimately, like I said, we're both on the other side of that. I'm remarried now, and us 3, we got called a tripod of parenting the other day because we really are. We've just graduated our oldest boy, Brady, and Anderson is about to enter high school, and we completely and totally successfully navigate parenting those boys like an absolute team. And it's taken a lot to get there.
Yeah. So what did you learn about your divorce process that you think might be helpful for others that are going through just the business of divorce, not necessarily the same situation, but just navigating that divorce process?
Okay, well, first of all, this is funny because I had no idea. You can't have the same attorney. Well, I didn't know this. And what was funny is he and I, my ex and I, went down together. We looked up, we looked up some attorneys. We're like, okay, well, let's pick one. And we go and show up to her office together. And she says, "Well, who am I representing?" And we're like, "Well, us. We want a divorce. We still love each other, and we just want to, get this custody agreement thing in place and whatever. Just lay out the rules of this. It's happening." And she's like, "All right, well, I have to represent one of you, and the other one doesn't have to get an attorney, but I can only have one of your names on the paper." So that was kind of a funny part of having to navigate it. Other than that, now, just like I said, learning your role to play and learning that no amount of working on your relationship, whether you're pre-divorce, in the middle of the divorce, or post-divorce, is going to be successful until you yourself are whole. And I don't know how to tell you to get there because it's a long and meandering, winding road. But I can tell you that if you stop, you won't get there. If you retreat from family and friends that really do support you. Now, there's a time and place to retreat from people and places and things, but ultimately it's us. if we're seeing patterns in our life, we can see, okay, what's the common denominator here? Oh yeah, that's me. I'm having failed relationship after relationship after relationship. I don't get along with any one of my kids. What's the common denominator? Oh my God, it's me. Yeah.
Personal responsibility.
Yes. And even when it seems like there's nothing, well, he cheated on me. Okay, that was wrong. He made a terrible choice, but why? And I'm not saying, that maybe you need to do any number of things, but it's still, we have a responsibility in that. I could pull out of this podcast studio today and get rear-ended by a car that was speeding. And even though it wasn't my fault, I'm still going to have responsibility. I'm going to have to call my insurance agent. I'm going to have to file a claim. Even I could have left 5 minutes sooner, 5 minutes later. I could have watched a little closer, not been adjusting my mirror. I have a responsibility to play and to hold with that situation.
It's not always easy for us all to admit or want to look into, or if we don't take the time to stop and do that self-reflection, because we're just so busy going and going and going, and it's so much easier to place blame on anybody and everybody else.
Yes. Oh, yes, 100%. I played the victim for so long in my divorce. I played oh my gosh, he lied to me. He was really gay. I can't believe he stayed married to me for so long. He knew walking down the aisle, looking at me, that he was doing just what he thought he was supposed to do. I played the blame game and the victimhood mentality. And it took me hours and years of therapy and counseling and self-discovery and reflection and meditation and prayer and soul searching and gut-wrenching admissions of guilt and admissions of places that I could have done better.
Right.
To get to the place that we are all at now. And it's hard. Girl, I get it. It's freaking hard. You want to point that finger and place that blame, but there's responsibility in every part of our life. And like, you're right, when we don't take out time to think, schedule time to think.
Yes.
Schedule time to not think. Discovering who you are and what's important to you is so important. I hear all the time people say, oh, and I thought my life was over when I found out, at 26, 27, I found out, and I'm like, oh my God, my life is over.
Yeah.
This was my plan. I was supposed to grow up, marry my high school sweetheart, have a couple of kids, be a nurse, minister to people, and boom, 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 like this. My marriage was gone. My best friend was gone. My health was gone. My career was gone, and I'm in my 20s. And it wasn't until, honestly, the past couple of years that I've been able to, through coaching and business and meeting other people and getting out of my shell and digging deep into my soul, to find out, what is my infinite purpose? Why am I on this planet? And I know that now. I know that I was put on this planet to share the story so that people can see there is hope beyond our human failure. Yeah. There is hope beyond my marriage to a gay man. There is hope beyond my addiction and alcohol that I use to fuel my depression. There's hope beyond mental illness. There's hope beyond holding a handful of pills time and time and time again, wanting to swallow them because you think your kids are truly better off without you. And I've been there.
Yeah.
And now that I understand that my infinite purpose is to share that hope with others, I can recognize that my marriage was a finite project. Yeah. And my children are a finite project. I'm losing them. Stephanie, they're growing up.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother mourning process you're entering
And even
into.
though I know they're always going to need me being a mother to young children was a finite project. Me being a nurse was a finite project. Me owning a digital marketing agency, I know, even though I hope and wish and project all the success over the next decade or so, I understand it's a finite project in my life. And so as long as I have my eyes focused on that infinite purpose, that I'm living to serve other people and bring them hope and purpose to their lives, because I've seen it possible, and I'm standing on the other side of a burning freaking country, it seems like, that they can have that too.
Yes. Amen. Preach it, sister. Yes.
Yes.
Knowing that purpose is what our energy comes from. When we go through those seasons of just hit after hit after hit, when we don't have that purpose, it's like nothing is pulling us forward and we're just sinking and we're just stuck. And I think a lot of people walk around just feeling stuck.
Yes.
And what is the reason? Why am I here? It's such a big question I feel like we all have. And if we're not taking the time to stop and explore that, if we don't have a community around us that can speak the truth in love and help us discover that, like, we can't figure these things out on our own. You had a whole team of people that helped walk you through that and helped you heal.
Yes.
And that's what it's about, is we need one another to heal. And so I think you have a huge, beautiful story that has come out of your ashes. I really appreciate you sharing all of that with us, because I can just hear the passion coming out of your experience and what you've gone through. So beautiful.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about how you've figured out how to blend your family and co-parent, and what advice do you have for that? Because I feel like that's just another tricky area.
It is. And, I hear stories all the time of the awful, crazy ex that just won't cooperate. And I hate it so much.
Mm-hmm.
But being really intentional about the outcomes that you want, and being less selfish, for one, has been the key for us. Leaning on one another when times are hard. When I was in the depths of my depression, my boys went to live with their dad full time for several months because I couldn't care for them. And there's been times over the years that we've been able to push and pull, but we're always pulling in the same direction for our kids. And if you can if I can lay down the fact that he left me for not even a man, didn't even have a relationship, just the other sex, surely we can lay down our differences. At one point, we loved that person.
Yeah.
I think we have to remember that at some point we loved that person. Our children were made out of love, and it is our responsibility. Here comes that word again, our personal responsibility to foster that relationship through to the end. You are in it with that person, with that ex-spouse, until the end of, at least until graduation. And I would hope to God you can keep it together to sit at graduation and sit at those marriages and enjoy your grandchildren together, because the pettiness is not worth it.
Right. It's about what's best for the kids. It's about reflecting on the legacy that you want to leave, and all of those little decisions that you make, those little interactions, whether you come out salty with each other, or if you're going to come out sweet and put it all behind you, to put the kids as the priority and show them what it looks like to have grace and forgiveness, because we're all walking around here just imperfect. We're all doing the best that we can with what we have. And so I think that's a huge testimony to love your kids is a way of loving your kids by still getting along with their other parents.
It is. And the bottom line is, I understand. I promise you, I understand how hard it is not to be like that piece of that. He won't pay his child support. He's never there. Whatever the complaint is, I totally understand the feeling that you need to gripe about the ex or about the situation. To your child is not the place to do it. And here's why. It's not because you don't need to get it out. Get it out to your girlfriend, get it out to your best friend, get it out to your pastor, your counselor, your therapist, the moon, whatever you've got to get that out to. Then get yourself straight, because your kid is going to know.
Yes.
Those kids grow up.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking from experience. I have 3 grown stepdaughters and 3 grandchildren through my now husband, and 2 teenage boys through, my first marriage. And these kids are getting older, and they recognize and they can see things for what they are.
Yes.
They start, as they get older, they start taking responsibility for their own relationships and seeing where the weak points were. So it's not your job to call them out to those kids. They're going to know eventually who was there, who was supported them, and who bore the weight of that privilege of raising them. They don't need the reinforcement of negativity.
And parent alienation is so damaging, and it will come back to bite you in the ass
Every time.
every time.
Every single time. And you don't know, there were times that I was ordering my ex-husband out of my house. How dare you rape me? I mean, it was awful. I was being very mean, saying awful things to him. And now, I mean, oh my gosh, we're best friends again. You never know how that relationship's going to change. And you need to watch your mouth because, like you said, it will bite you in the butt every time. And the kids will know.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They grow up to be very smart, intuitive
Yes.
individuals.
Yes, they do.
So what is one thing that you would like for our listeners to take away? I've heard the word responsibility a lot today. What is something that you would like to leave with our listeners that would give them hope and courage to keep moving forward and not give up?
You don't have to have it all figured out. I know that some of you may be just curled up in a fetal position in the corner of your bedroom or deep in your closet and just wondering what's next. Is there anything left for me? And I promise you that yes, there is. And you don't have to know what those next steps are. But what you do have to do is keep moving. Even if those movements are wrong, even if they start you down, a path that's not going to be permanent, you have to keep moving and you have to be connected to other people. That is the bottom line, because I stopped moving and I disconnected from my people, new and old, and I lost myself in a sea of depression that didn't have to be. And it's all because I didn't face it up front. I hid. I ran and I hid. And I buried my feelings in myself and thought I was all alone. And I wallowed in self-pity. And to come from the place of victim to victor and, victim to hero, nobody remembers the victim, right? We remember the one who saved them. So get your ass up and save yourself and do it with therapy, do it with groups, do it through positive friends, do it through relationships, through church, through whatever you have to do. But please don't hide and please don't stop, even if you feel like you're moving in the wrong direction at first. You'll find your way. If there's a way for me, there's a way for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You're here for a reason. You're important and worthy, and you are lovable. I think that's one thing that people, when they're going through a divorce, they feel so unlovable and so rejected. And what about those people that are supporting somebody that are going through a divorce? What advice would you give them? How can they best bring dignity and respect to the divorcee?
That's a really good question. Don't assume you know. Don't assume you know. Like I said, my family, they embraced my ex-husband and still do in many ways to this day. We all get along again, like I said, but he was their first boy. It was just me and my sister. And so along came this boy that they loved so much, and they just knew that there was nothing in him that could ever separate him from loving me or me from loving him. And so they just assumed that me, being the stronger personality, was at fault. And we never know.
Yeah.
So check in. Please check in on them. Don't hover, mothers. You don't need to go over and clean her house every day and cook her dinner every day and do her laundry. And if you want to do her laundry, that's great. Just schedule the time.
Yeah.
But encourage them, uplift them, do things for no reason. Find out what their love language is and love them in the way, ask them.
Yeah.
How can I best serve you? How can I show you support? What do you need?
The worst thing you can do is just pull away.
I was going to say, if they say, leave me alone, I would say that's the only thing. Please do not serve that need, because they don't need to be left alone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not time for you to make it about you and get your feelings hurt because they're not responding or because they're ghosting you.
Right.
It's time for you to take responsibility to show up and continue to show up for them.
Yes.
Because you love them and you want to see them through it.
Yeah. And don't, I don't even know. That's good. Just don't go away. Don't assume you know. and show up.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I feel very honored and privileged to be able to see how your life is blossoming and how you have taken those ashes and turned it into something very, very beautiful. And I'll be cheering you on because I know great things are still coming from you.
Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. And until next time, just keep moving forward.
Keep on moving.
Yeah. For more information on services or divorce resources provided by The Divorce Life, you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram or find us at www.thedivorcelife.com. Thank you for tuning in and listening, and a big thanks to my producer, Jazz, at the Possibilities Podcast Center.